Hello, good evening, and welcome. Welcome, one, welcome all. Welcome to this thing of ours, this thing we do most nights, usually news at 10 roundup. But tonight, 8 o'clock, as we are joined by my good friend, Dr. Bruce Scott. I will bring Bruce in presently. In fact, Bruce, I'm going to bring you straight in as we wait for the room to fill up, as we wait for our friends to join us, and we'll get it through. A quick shout out to them as they do indeed join us. Just waiting for the feeds, the feedback. It looks good on D Live and also looking pretty good on Twitch. Facebook friends joining us presently. We'll bring them into play. Before we jump into our discussion, Bruce, just to point out a few things that people might not be aware of happening further afield. Over in Amsterdam last night, there was a mass demonstration, some police vehicles set on fire. Also in Denmark, scenes here from Gert Wilders on his Twitter feed about the disruption throughout the Amsterdam, and a lot more to follow. See, can't bring you the audio at the moment. Good evening, Silmianta. Welcome to have you. Michael asking if we've downloaded. No, we're going to be doing a live stream with Dolores on Wednesday. It will be live in person. Myself and the good professor will be sat down and discussing her latest adventures, and we will bring that up, bring you the up to date on what she is occurring. So, just wanted to bring it to your attention about the mass anti-lockdown demonstrations happening in the Netherlands. Also, similar scenes in Denmark. More and more anti-lockdown demonstrations are getting a little bit vitriolic because of the continued psychological pressure that we are all feeling and that is being perpetrated on. Also, this video doing the rounds. I don't know if you've come across this one, Bruce. I'm not going to play the audio, but effectively that is the Pfizer hotline. And in the recorded digital announcement, it also states that it is not authorized by the CDC or the FDA and is indeed indemnified, which curiously brings me on to a Twitter post just down below. And this pertains to your situation over in the United Kingdom. That the conditions of the authorization for the Pfizer BioNTech, there's technology in it, COVID-19 vaccine, or more appropriately, gene therapy delivered by a medical instrument. But in the general outlines, it says this temporary authorization under Regulation 174 permits the supply of identified COVID-19 mRNA. We'll talk about that a little bit more. The mRNA vaccine in batches. This authorization is not a marketing authorization. So it's an emergency release. And it also, I think it's the same picture twice there. My apologies. Let me see. Authorization for temporary supply by the UK Department of Health and Social Care and the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency. It does not have a marketing authorization. But this temporary authorization grants permission for the medicine to be used for active immunization of individuals aged 18 or over. I'll have to go through there, Bruce, as things are getting folded. I've been paying attention, as I know our good friends as well, with Nicola Sturgeon being more and more being put on the block. So she's being found out once again. She's withholding the payments from the borrowing that she's done from the Exchequer down in London, but she's not dishing them out under the COVID payment scheme. She's keeping them for the pursuit of Scottish independence. Does this woman have no understanding of what she's actually doing or talking about?
Well, I mean, I haven't kept up with that part of the news, but it's incredible. You know, the independence thing. It's incredible. All during Brexit, of course, it was Brexit will be terrible for this country. She said it'll be terrible for Scotland, and we should stay in the EU and all that. It'll be disastrous, and now. And now we're in the middle of the so-called deadly pandemic, which she keeps bleating on about and telling everyone that we should obey the rules, and she doesn't know exactly when we're going to open up. You know, all these Scottish music festivals. She was questioned the other day, and she essentially said, "I can't tell you when things will be open." I mean, such indefinite. But yeah, independence is still in the books. I mean, it beggars belief, doesn't it? It really beggars belief. And because of Scotland, well, months ago was like a forecast that one, was it? I can't remember. It was a lot, but a huge. It was half of all small and medium sized businesses might not make it through lockdown, and and she thinks that having a independence referendum in the middle of all that economic, disaster zone would be a good thing. I mean, in one hand, it sounds, you think idiots are running the government. I mean, the finance minister's about 12, 8 fours. I don't think she's even done an economics degree. Uh, it is utterly astounding.
I make the comparison today out of my daily journeys today as well. Speaking with a business owner today as well. Never met the chap before. I was just in the process of conducting business with him, shall we say, new business. And quite unexpectedly, he came out talking about the situation in Ireland, the lockdown procedures, the skepticism towards the efficiency. Well, first of all, he broke the barrier and just spoke about the masks, and he was going into his understanding without me even hadn't a clue who I was, obviously, and the person that I was with. But the conversation, he was questioning the mask, the efficacy, the rebreathing of the carbon dioxide, the effect on the immune system. He was coming out and explaining to us, and I was going, "Yeah, you're speaking to the converted here," but I wasn't saying anything to him, But then he broke away and said, I have friends and I know people, and it's beginning to really hurt. A lot of people are struggling and are in danger of losing their homes. It's now becoming, because of duration here in the Republic of Ireland, people are beginning to feel the pressure now. These, one or two late payments on the mortgage, the regular cash flow, the reduction in the income, and the subsistence on the COVID payments not being nearly enough to match the lifestyle that you're accustomed to, having to make drastic reduction in expenditure and concentrate on food, denial of luxuries for the children, not being able to go anywhere outside of 5K region. Most people will stay in. They don't want to be lawbreakers. They don't want the hassle. We've got various reports now of An Garda Síochána patrolling the beaches and harassing individuals walking alone by the beach, asking for have they got permission to be walking here. One gentleman was found out to be 20 kilometres outside his home address, and they let him off with a caution. But this constant harassment by the Garda is being ramped up here in Ireland. Over the weekend, police were detaining people travelling to the airport and asking them if their journey abroad was necessary. Meanwhile, the plane, even though in the midst of a lockdown, and a draconian lockdown that we often describe, the airports are wide open, the ferry ports are wide open, some 33,000 per week, shall we say, travelling to and fro, not expected to quarantine, but ordinary citizens going about their business are getting harassed by the Garda, and it's ramping the tension up. So, I with the as I relate that to the protests in the anti-lockdown, the Eastern European bloc are well ahead of us because they can say they understand what is being perpetrated here. And you're going to jump into us, and I want to make a quick quote before I let you go. But in your UK article, you used a quote from Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and about why you and I engage in these conversations, Bruce. And the quote sets it up, where Solzhenitsyn said in 1978 at the Harvard University, many of you have already found out, and others will find out in the course of their lives, that truth eludes us if we do not concentrate our attention totally on its pursuit. But even while it eludes us, the illusion of knowing it still lingers and leads to many misunderstandings. Also, truth seldom is pleasant. It is almost invariably bitter. There is some bitterness in my speech too, but I want to stress that it comes not from an adversary, but from a friend. And that's important because people get their shackles up when you start challenging the orthodoxy of the narrative that's being perpetrated. Break down the psychological torture that people are going through, as you see it, Bruce.
Well, where do I start? Well, it just came out today, and there was an article in the Daily Express in the UK. A group of psychologists, scientists, economists from a group called the Heart Group, which I'm kind of involved with. I've met them online in a group, and It was launched today. It's like a kind of an alternative to Sage, and they were in the Daily Express, basically outlining what I wrote in my article. As a lot of psychologists and therapists, etc., are catching on to what the UK government are doing regarding the psychological operation, and it was led by a guy called Gary Sidley. He's an ex consultant in the NHS, and I know him. I speak to him online, and we've communicated for quite a few months now. And so it's great. It's fantastic that they are coming out in more and more people in the mental health profession are coming out and realizing it. But what is very interesting, I think, is that this situation, it is a dire situation we're in, I think. It is smoking people out. It's smoking the frauds out. It's smoking the abusers, so to speak, out. And of course, what abusers do, they deny anything's going on. And so, for example, on social media today, there's a very popular mental health champion. She's an LBC presenter called Natasha Devon. I know I've heard of her vaguely, but apparently she's set up some mental health charity, or she's written books about self-help or something. I don't know that much about her, but this group they've set up this group. I can't remember what it's called, but you can see it on her Twitter account. But she's blocked me now. But
I've seen that.
It's basically a group set up talking about mental health and the mental health of people in lockdown, but not blaming lockdown, of course, just suffering in lockdown. But it's also it's a plea to the media, to target the people who are anti-lockdown and weaponizing mental health. And so, as I say, my Twitter account there, I said to her, well, the UK government are weaponizing psychological mental health against their own population. And I said to her, and a few other tweets there, that, I said that you're basically a false mental health champion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, I never said that in the past. She blocked me immediately when I
you challenged her.
Last time I checked, that's the one she blocked me on. Last time I checked, psychological abuse was a crime. The media are silent on the ethical practice of spivey of Sage, and as are the BPS, this British Psychological Society, and the Health and Care Professions Council, which are they regulate psychologists. They're the regulator, breaking ethical codes, etc. It's not a good look, and yet, so what has become very noticeable to me is that it's smoking these people out. It's smoking the bullies out. It's smoking the people who are not on the side of, I would say, truth. And it's interesting because I was just thinking before I came on air. You look at the sort of the cultural critics pre-COVID, people like Slavoj Zizek. He was always quite kind of in the cool. He's very left, isn't he? Left wing.
Uber left.
But he is.
Dr. Marcus de Bruin is a big fan. That's why we're world apart. But I've great admiration for Dr. Marcus de Bruin. You probably know him as well, Bruce. Sorry for the sidebar.
But I mean, I've tried to read some of Zizek's books, but I think it's just nonsense, a lot of it. To be frank,
I would concur. I delved into it, but I watched the videos, and I could just totally disagree. But we're not going to break into the minutiae of that. Go ahead, Bruce. Sorry.
Yeah, well, a short story. When years ago, when I was training to be a therapist, and my training therapist, I had a dream because I was reading one of Zizek's books, and I went to see Zizek in this dream, and I said, I don't get it, I understand it. He said, I'm just fucking with you. So I went to my therapist and I says, I had this dream that Zizek was my supervisor. And he says, he's just fucking with me. He says, yes, he is. Because it's what's called the nonsense regime. But anyways, people like him and even Noam Chomsky in America, these great cultural critics, it's like they've been smoked out, and all the mental health so-called champions are coming out on the side of the people. They're quite happy that people are oppressed, and they're like the useful idiots that Yuri Bezmenov talked about, because you put the information right under their nose and go, here you are, like I did to Natasha Devon today. I sent her my article. I said, here you go. Why are you silent? And it's just no. There's no argument.
I lose my prominence. I might lose my income. Not even so my income. I might have to go back to standard practice as opposed from being, as you say, a celebrity faux Bill Nye, the science guy, representative of psychology on what they, because it's useful to the mainstream for someone like that that's just willing to toe the line for exorbitant amounts of money. I suddenly made a quote along the lines there during the week that these people may be experts, but that doesn't stop them being paid to lie to you either.
Yeah, well, yes, I think as I mentioned many times on this show, in the old Eastern Bloc under totalitarian communism, the intelligentsia, journalists, academics, a lot of them they were very easily capitulated to the system. You know, in spite of all the facts put in front of them, you know, human nature's a terrible thing, isn't it? And I'll tell you what, in one of the blatant things of this whole psychological operation that really started to rise up in my consciousness, so to speak, and I discussed it on my latest YouTube video with a guy from America, Dr. Brent Potter. He's a therapist, psychologist, and author from South Carolina, and we discussed it. We had a long conversation about lots of things, and I said to him, ordinarily, right? There's the treatment called cognitive behavioral therapy, which is very well known. A lot of people have received it, and it's on the NHS, etc. And
just have that interview on the screen there as well, just to show our viewers. Just make sure you make your way over to Scott's View over on YouTube if you haven't done so already, friends and family, when you're sharing this out. A princely 377. It's going well. Fair play, Bruce.
It's going well, yeah. So, anyways, so for example, if a patient goes to see a cognitive behavioral therapist for a fear about a phobia, for example, CBT's, the research shows, is pretty good for phobias generally. It gets people through a rough patch, you know. So if someone goes to see a therapist because they're frightened of flying, for example, they've got a phobia of flying. So the therapist would say, "Oh, you're frightened of flying, right? Okay," and they might go through some of the processes of what occurs in flying, like the turbulence. Oh, that's just the aircraft on the airstream, and it's just normal noises, or the air flaps going up, coming into land. That's just normal. It's slowing the aircraft down, and or the person thinks they're having a heart attack or they're dying, and so they'll look at the evidence of these beliefs and they'll say, well, say someone says, I'm going to die. I think I'm going to die. Well, what age are you? Well, I'm 50, right? And you run marathons. Yes, you're fit and healthy. So and if you had any underlying health conditions recently, and they get all the blood tests, and they go through and they look at the negative automatic thoughts. So you get the gist. They appraise the evidence of what the situation is so the patient can get a grasp on the reality of the situation. Now, when it comes to the psychological operation of COVID, they have thrown that model completely into the bin. And the psychologists working on the government have thrown it into the bin. Because if you're a 50-year-old man with no underlying health conditions, or a woman, you're very unlikely to have any issues with COVID, or it's even higher than that. But it's because so the therapist would say, well, you're not going to die of COVID because there's only 400 people in the UK. In England and Wales, have 400 or 500 people have died since March. And you've not got any underlying conditions, and you're young, so it looks like you've got nothing really to fear about. But what the government are saying is act like you have COVID. Act like you have it.
Act like you have it, even after the vaccination. Still
Even,
act, and don't
even,
forget, you still have to wear the mask. You still have to
yeah,
socially distance. We're not sure if you're going to be a spreader.
yeah. Why? So why are they pushing on with this? Actually, you've got to be more frightened than the reality of the situation. They should be telling, if they really cared about the UK population, or the Irish, where they're doing similar things in France, Canada, whatever, they would say, right, okay, this block of the population under the age of whatever,
50, say
50
50.
or 60, you've got no problems. Do not worry. Older
Boost
people.
your immune system. Take regular doses of vitamin D. Live an active, healthy lifestyle. Watch your cholesterol intake, but go about your business. Those of you that are slightly older, please remain in your uptake of vitamin D. We have therapeutics such as hydroxychloroquine, which is now even the Irish government has pivoted on its position. The Irish Freedom Party here in the Republic of Ireland challenging the government said if you had listened to our chairperson, Professor Dolores Cahill, who spoke about this last year, but for political reasons, you chose to ignore her and the centre. So it's all starting to change. So even though what we've been talking about, everybody's become aware of, and that they, as you said, as Yuri Bezmenov says as well, that they stick the information right in front of your face and tell the blatant lies, but keep shifting the goalposts. So you're
Yeah.
constantly.
Well, so if you went to a CBT therapist for a fear of dying from a virus, ordinarily the therapist would, if they would know about the flu virus or a coronavirus, they would say, well, what age are you, and what do you think you're going to do, and why do you think you're going to die? Ethically, they would say you shouldn't worry, but the psychologists they're blatantly saying you should worry, and this has got historical precedent, as I discussed on Saturday with Dr. Brett Potter as well. I read some from a book that I read. It's a book called White Nights, the pages from a Russian doctor's notebook called Dr. Boris Sokolov, and he met Ivan Pavlov, the Russian physiologist, psychologist. He talks about it in the book, and he goes to the laboratory where Pavlov worked with dogs, and what they were doing with the dogs they were inducing them to stress, like bright lights, noise, torturing them basically, and basically making them neurotic, making them mentally ill, so to speak. And in the description in the book, they describe quite clearly how it's quite easy to turn a very placid, healthy dog into a neurotic dog. And also, he says, and what we're finding out, and what it describes in the book, they find that after months and months of this torture, actually it induces a lot of health conditions in the dog, physical health conditions, and tumors and cancers. And of course, this was under
All stress induced.
Yeah. And this is what this group in the UK, and Gary Sidley in the Heart Group are putting forward to the British Psychological Society.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying that this is putting the UK population under stress, and it's going to have profound effects on people's not just their mental health, but eventually their physical well-being, and it cannot continue. It cannot be ignored any longer.
Mm-hmm.
And and of course, and this is very interesting. Very well, not interesting. It's horrifying, actually. The reports are coming out from hospitals and mental health charities. Some report in the Telegraph, I think it was
Over
saying
here. You talking about children, Bruce?
Children. That's the one.
Yeah, I have it here queued up now. I wasn't going to psych it up there, but more children are being admitted to hospital for mental health and the medical reasons, leading pediatrician says. And also, there I have these papers lined up, more and more papers coming out of pediatrics. There, school closures during the COVID-19 pandemic, a catastrophic global situation, and also the BBC reporting from your feed there. Teachers are not at significantly higher risk of death from COVID-19 than the general population. It's slowly creeping by, but if we do not get our children back to school to help them to socialize and recover from whatever damage this last year is doing, this is, apart from the vaccine itself, this is should be one of the most critical points for all people's focus, is the attention and the damage to future generations that we're doing unknown, like the health benefits of the lockdown, or the health catastrophes that are waiting because of the lockdowns are yet to be felt. But the psychological damage on the young children now, as it's presenting now and manifesting itself, that they cannot ignore it. As you say, Bruce, suicidal ideation among young adults is going through, I'm not saying going through the roof, but is escalating. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, well, in layman's speak, I think the shit is now starting to hit the fan. To put it bluntly, and I think we're now in an information war. I noticed one of the protagonists of Spy B, the applied psychology team from the UK government, Susan Mitchie, who I discussed in my article, who basically is on Twitter, basically condemning people who break the rules in lockdown and condemning complacency and always shouting for more lockdown and more lockdown. You know, I think it's highly irresponsible of her in her position to, you know, put out this kind of fear porn, you know, day and night. And so where was I? What was my point? I can't remember what my point was. But
yeah, my fault, Bruce. Sorry about that.
But yeah, she was extremely quiet on Twitter today because of this new article in the Daily Express coming out. So my guess behind the scenes, there's a lot of well, maybe Zoom meetings, maybe they're meeting in person, because the government advisors usually break the rules anyway. So
they all do. None of them have adhered to their own rules. From Sleepy Joe Biden to Nicholas Sturgeon to a lot of them, the politicians are laughing at us because they don't even adhere to their own rules. Sorry, Bruce, go ahead.
Yeah. So I wonder if there's a lot of meetings going in the background today, because I heard that some of the government adverts were also pulled because they were regarded as I don't know who pulled them, but they were. It was regarded that the adverts about look me in the eyes. It was like quite horrific adverts, really, and there was some information on the BBC about dog walkers or super spreaders or something like that, and I had to pull that story. So it's quite tangible. The information that's getting put out there is getting desperate, and you know, he showed me all those videos at the beginning there of of different protests. I think, you know, a lot of people are rightly questioning it, but this counterattack from people saying, oh, people who are skeptical of lockdown should be shut out by the media. That's highly dangerous, you know, because as I said to someone recently, who you know, people who are pro-lockdown, but they're in the hate anti-lockdown, or people who are skeptical of it, they want to shut them out. But then that is no longer science. That's dogma. And then we're in a very bad place. We're in a very, very bad place. I mean, the science of COVID, whether you want lockdown or not lockdown or half lockdown or anything, you look at the data, you look at what's going on, and you think, well, there's no definitive kind of answer to this. You can't just say, well, we'll have to lock down. Everyone has to lock down. It's so suspicious now. I mean, on the UK column today, you know, because of COVID, there's the whole Great Reset thing. There's the whole we'll have to build back better. We'll have to use this as an opportunity to build a greener and more sustainable future idea.
All the
Well,
buzzwords, the Great
yeah,
Reset being redisguised now and recommissioned as Build Back Better from America to all the useful fools, even our own included, all the politicians. Johnson said it, Nicola Sturgeon ascribes to it as well, and they all use it in the vernacular from Prince Charles. It's the big buzzword among the oligarchs.
yeah. Well, on the UK Column News today, there was a very interesting segment about the green sustainable future from the as an opportunity, and they were looking at you know zero carbon by 2025, or no diesel cars, and all electric
Sorry,
cars.
Bruce. There, I just wanted to throw that up there. Sorry to break your flow. Just want to say a big shout out, not a shout out to Terry O'Brien. They're just saying his 16-year-old son has quite a bad breakdown last lockdown, and as a single parent, he tried to turn him around, but now he's seen him slowly going back into that hole. I just wanted to just to say you're not alone there. As well, we all feel it. When if there's anything in the community, reach out. We'd love to be, we'll be
Yeah,
able to
yeah.
help.
I feel for her son. Yeah, I feel it's terrible.
Mm.
But hopefully they can meet like-minded people and not feel they're going mad. So it's a hard time, but I was the ridiculousness of it. In this segment in the UK column, they were talking about to get all this electric cars for the future, the amount of mining you have to do to get all these precious kind of metals and rare metals. I mean,
Mm.
it exceeds for this just to get all electric cars in Britain. It would exceed the amount of cobalt or something like that. The whole world's supply of cobalt. So in a sense, what it was saying was that it is fun. It's a fantasy to have this kind of electric car future. There's just not enough cobalt for cars for everyone. If you know
Yeah.
to let cars. So does that mean only the elites are going to be traveling in cars?
We'll all be in super cities on smarts, trams, and mass herded in, and not allowed to venture forward out into the rural areas, which the wealthy
Yeah.
and those in the elites will be able to travel at their leisure. I want to steer us in a quick direction. Sorry, Bruce, as we're coming up on the half hour mark. Uh, and not to take away from the effect and our number one pressing concern is our children's mental health well-being. But I was recently listening to Peter Hitchens, brother of Christopher Hitchens. I know you're well aware of Christopher. I used to avidly devour his content and his books and really engage with his tweets with Dinesh, not his tweets, with his discussions with Dinesh D'Souza in the years when we were debating the existence of God and all of that at the time. But Peter Hitchens has very quite admirably taken up Christopher's position as a contrarian. That's what Christopher Hitchens always described himself as a contrarian. And as a contrarian, he always went against mainstream, no matter what, even as a matter of principle. If everybody was in agreement, there had to be one that would, just for the sake of it, just to be seen, not that there was 100% agreement in anything, that the 1% of opposition was there. And that is what is sadly lacking in all of this. What I see in the United Kingdom and what I see particularly here in the Republic of Ireland is not only do we not have principled opposition, we don't have any political opposition. Our our party of opposition supposedly is Sinn Féin, and they have let us down abjectly, even on a matter of principle, to be going against government dogma and saying, as a matter of principle, I disagree with you and I challenge you to produce the evidence for this. And having that debate there, that's what the opposition should be doing, challenging the dogma, challenging the narrative, and not allowing. But all our politicians are now primarily subservient to EU. The United Kingdom, not so much. They've got their supposed independence on whatever the Brexit agreement was. Agreement Brexit in name only, I would imagine, in the long term. But Boris Johnson actively going along with what Brussels is doing in the lockdown of its citizenry to the 10th, actually ramping it up. And we are following headlong into it. And if Irish people cannot see what's going on, if you do not learn from your neighbours' mistakes, how can we possibly turn this around and save our children's mental health and what any possibility of a future that they may have to create, or we stumble and get bought into UBI, basic universal basic income, and then we sell their futures for we're saving our futures today or for their futures tomorrow. I'm saying we're selling their futures so that we can remain safe today. And we are burdening them with debt after debt, high taxes, and into a slave class because somebody's got to pay for this, and it's being leveraged off the children's back while they're being destroyed psychologically. Sorry, Bruce.
Yeah. No, it's incredible, I think, what's happening to the economy. It's incredible what's happening to people's mental health. And it's incredible all these supposed champions of mental health, not just in the UK, but in Ireland and other places, are going along with this. One of the most disgusting things, I've seen is the masking of children in schools. And some schools in Scotland, for example, have, on their Twitter accounts, boasting proudly how, although 12 years or 13 years old, they have to wear masks all the time in the school, when they were open, that was. But the younger pupils, they were joining in as well, and the school made their own masks as well and sold them for £1. And one of the government advisors in Scotland, Linda Bald, there was an article about it in the newspaper, and she said her daughter had to wear a mask to school, and for the first few days she had a headache, but she got used to it. So in other words, with the oxygen deprivation and the effects on the brain, she got a headache, but of course the brain adjusts and gets used to it, but it doesn't mean that the harm's not been happening any longer. And of course the Scottish government haven't done any risk assessment of face masks on children. They haven't looked at the oxygen deprivation, headaches, the psychosocial dimension, the bacterial infections, and I think it's utterly astounding. And yet you present evidence to them. People presented evidence, scientific evidence and research to show that masks don't work, that they have all these potential harms, and yet you haven't done a risk assessment. I think in the years after this, if we look back, if we're given the chance to, in the COVID post COVID, well, will it ever be post COVID? I don't know. When it comes in the years down the line, how will we say? Will we say, "Oh, we treated the children well"? I very much doubt it.
Very much doubt it as well there. But then the World Health Organization and its all serves, and you can read the transcription there for yourself. They tell you and have told you repeatedly that masks are ineffective at stopping the flu or any sort of virus. The virus itself, on average, measures 0.03 microns. Your most basic mask, even at the most, the N95s, even it says on the packaging, are only efficient up to 5 microns, not 0.03, 5 microns. So it's like trying to stop a mosquito and trying to catch a mosquito with a chainmail or with a picket fence. It's ridiculous. But the retardation, the lack of critical thought, and the subservience and cowardice and moral malaise, moral deficiency. There it is. It came to the moral deficiency to challenge the dogma to remain safe and not be roasted on as anti-maxer or anti-vaxxer. No, you're vaccine safety aware, and you challenge the dogma because that's what opposition does. That's what people do. That's what a democracy is. And there is no representation for any alternative voices. That is a dictatorship, and I'm fucked if I'm allowing my children to grow up under a dictatorship.
Yeah, no, it's I'm just watching that woman in that World Health Organization putting. Those masks are useless. I mean, and in the psychosocial aspect, the other day, last Wednesday, I've got some colleagues in Lithuania, and the psychiatrist, the head of the department, he invited me to take part in a group discussion before, and then a group therapy meeting with patients in the hospital, and some were on Zoom, and then a discussion afterwards. And and I had a translator, for Russian translator, and it was very interesting. I mean, I was zoomed into the therapy room, so where the group therapy was taking place.
Yeah.
And of course, Lithuania, they're also under. I don't know if it's quite as bad as the UK, but the mandates for masks have been around for a while, and all the staff were sitting. The doctor, the psychiatrist, and the nurses, they were sitting with masks on. Some of them quite poorly, on below the nose and all that kind of thing. But the patients, they never had the masks on. They didn't have to. But it was strange to see this wall of masks, because you couldn't tell who was speaking.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell who was speaking.
And they're probably so used to that and that, because they're always in that sterile environment and stuff like that. But again, that's the loss. That's another applicable weapon that's being used. It's isolating us ourselves from facially recognizing strangers, or just identifying, seeing new faces. The stimulation even of it as well, of acquiring new data. But we're all walking around, just a pair of eyes in our Sharia compliant face mask that's almost comparable to Islamic, to covering of the face, to hide it away. Micheál Martin also today said the vaccines won't work on the strains in yesterday's newspaper. They're being found out. But what they're doing now, as you can see, they're starting to blame social media for the lack of civility in the public discourse and political discourse here in the Republic of Ireland, is what our Taoiseach said. That's the sort of inane, banal fucking nonsense that I would expect from Nicola Sturgeon, but he is quite capable of knocking out some chariots of fucking horse shit. But that, apart from his, Ireland does not look towards the backward idea of sovereignty. I was in the middle of a javelin throw when I heard him say that. Some of his other things, but like I say, the law is breaking down, and they're trying to blame social media. Hence the hate speech law. If we don't do anything of significance, like the Dutch, like the Danish people are doing, and also the Dutch people as well, and France kicking up again. You won't see it on mainstream. If we don't take to the streets in peaceful mass demonstration in numbers and exert our power over them, but people are so afraid to get into groups and mass. Go ahead.
And we should. I think people should get into the habit of calling a spade a spade.
Yeah, speak your truth.
Because I mean, regarding what the government are doing, regarding what's happening is psychological abuse. That the government is not our friend. I think it was one of the videos. It was your counterparts in Ireland, Gemma Docherty and
Gemma.
The people getting arrested, and we are now in a police state.
Police state.
Yeah, and I think it's very true, and we should call a spade a spade a spade. And so essentially, some people say, "Oh, we can be critical and add to the debate and sort the situation out." I think the time for being, I'm not saying being, I'm kind of saying you have to call a spade and the psychological abuse. What's happening? You can't just go, well, let's look at the science and come to that's how we can get out of this all together. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
No, the government is not our friend. It is not our friend. It's quite plain now. And the only weapon they've got now is censorship and information war, or hitting you with a water cannon at close distance, like they do in the Netherlands.
Split that poor girl's face wide open as well. I've seen all of that. Bruce, I know we're chugging along here quite nicely, but I think it's actually apropos that we step out now, coming up on the 45-minute mark. I'm sorry to cut our conversation short, but before I do let you go, please let people know where they can find you, also your YouTube channel, and any other interesting articles on things you might want to bring to our attention before we say goodbye.
Well, I'm on Twitter at Dr. Bruce Scott, and I'm on Gab now as well. Would you believe
Ron,
it?
you're crazy. You are mad. That right-wing alternative platform. You're mad.
Dr. V Scott on Gab, and my YouTube is Scott's Views. Go along there. There's some interesting videos about lots of different things regarding COVID and mental health and religion. And What else? Well, you check out the UK column. The UK column, I've got an article out in the psychological attack on the UK, and there should be some more articles. And there are more articles on that actually, in videos about mental health and the psy-op. What else?
I got that UK column article there, which I thoroughly enthrall and beseech people to read through as well.
Yeah, and there's an article in Off Guardian if people fancy looking at that. It's called "The Cult of the Brave New Normal."
Yeah, I did see you mention that somewhere there. We'll go dig it out, Bruce. I might have to let you go there. Well, I might not have to let you go. I'm going to let you go there. And I look forward to our next meeting, 2 weeks' time. Is it a date? Will you be there? Will we any of us still be here? Who knows, Bruce?
It's a date, Rowan. It's a date.
It's a date, my friend. You stay safe and look after yourself. And
Yeah.
I look forward to our next conversation. Take care. Okay, did you, laddie?
Okay, the new.
Okay, my friends, thanks very much for joining us there. I'm going to make this a short and sweet one there. I hope you enjoyed the conversation between myself and Bruce. Lots of stew and apples for you to pick through there. Hope it sort of relieves the tension in the air. You are not alone. We are all observers of this delirium. And as Bruce says, and quite clearly patently seeing this emotional, psychological torture that's being perpetrated on us by our friendly neighbourhood government. And I repeat and I remind you again, we do not have political opposition in this country, in the Republic of Ireland here. Can't speak for anywhere else. And I wish people would wake up to that fact. And the fact that is the political arena is lost to us in the immediacy if we do not take to the streets in peaceful, organised fashion. The St. Patrick's Day parade is to take and is being said that it will not be allowed to go ahead this year. I thoroughly encourage each and every one of you in all your local towns and regions to make a point of marching down your town, your city, your street in direct defiance of the lockdown procedures. Come hell what may, turn two, and it's time to drive the masks out. We can drive the masks out. He drove the snakes out, we'll drive the masks out, and the rest of the nonsense for our children's sakes, for all our children's sakes. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you again tomorrow evening. Take care of yourselves. Be brave and be good. And a big shout out from the big fella as always. Wuss.